What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith with another GSD mode interview where every single week we interview top entrepreneurs and just straight up top badasses out there dominating their space. These are people choosing to not live a life of mediocrity, but instead to go out there and create epic, big, amazing lives for themselves and for their families. So today, you guys, we got an amazing guest on the show. This is a guy that jumped into entrepreneurship actually last year, decided to jump in the game, hit the ground running, did some big things in his first year, which in an industry where a lot of people struggle, right? So I'm really stoked and honored to have Jon Mendelsohn on the show. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I'm stoked, dude. So I know you just jumped in last year. Within your first 6 months, you're out there banging out, close to 20 deals, 6 million in production, in an industry where most people are over 90% fail in their first year, right? But before we get into what you did to gain that instant traction in your first year, and I know you're on fire right now as we enter 2017. Let's talk about your journey though that led you to this space. Like, we were on the clock. What did you do before you got into real estate, and what kind of led you here?
Yeah, so I didn't have much of an entrepreneurial background by any means. Like my dad is a college professor, my mom's a high school teacher, so I came from like a super educationally based family, and I just always sucked in school. Like, my sister's a lawyer, my brother's got a couple master's degrees, right? Everybody in my family is awesome in school, and then I'm like your C student. Like, I'm the guy that the report card says, like, yeah, if he put some effort in, he'd probably actually accomplish something, but he's probably going to be like, breaking bricks for a living. So, but I ended up struggling through school, ended up finishing, getting my undergraduate degree, met my wife when I was in college, and she was in this kind of weird space. She's a biologist, so she was in this blood banking space. And at that time, I was selling life insurance, and I started donating blood. And I was like, dude, I could sit with you for an hour. You're going to buy a life insurance policy. So I would donate blood, and I got 3 or 4 of the people in the company right off the bat, having policies, and then they needed a sales and marketing guy. So they came to me and they asked me, and I was like, yeah, I guess it's steady income. I'll do this for a little bit. Ended up being like 10 years. I went all around the country, moved into the corporate levels, the executive levels in that space, and got my master's degree along the way, because I realized at some point I was like, everybody above me, every CEO and VP has a master's degree. So I sludged through that shit and ended up, getting a master's degree in business. And moved pretty far up, like got to the point where I was a 6-figure income earner. And I kind of hated it. I didn't realize it right off the bat, but it was like the higher I got up, the more I hated my job, until one day I was just like, dude, this is not going to work anymore. Like, to get to the next level, I'm going to completely not do anything I like anymore. It got to the point where I became almost an administrator. I would take stuff from the big corporate office and filter it out into the field, into my sales reps and sales managers. I was like, dude, I could be replaced with a good email system. So I decided, originally I was going to go into, pharmaceutical or biomedical sales of some sort. I figured they could make bank. And I decided that, I'm gonna hang it up. I was a director at the time, I had like 50 salespeople that worked for me. And I was like, I'm going to switch industries, and started interviewing for biomedical rep jobs, right? So like calling on docs and stuff. And I didn't really realize at that time I had so much freedom in my career. Like, we're talking like almost a decade of not really having bosses. I was reporting to the CEOs and stuff. And so the idea that I had to clock into the field at 8 a.m. and clock out of the field at 5 p.m., it just blew my mind. I couldn't even comprehend doing it. And I'm sitting in a doctor's office. I don't mean to get off on a tangent, but I'm sitting in a doctor's office for like a checkup, right? And I see this dude walk in, and he's kind of got like this wrinkled, disheveled suit on. And you can tell he's been calling on docs all day. He's got his pharma rep bag in his hand. And I just watched the gal at the counter just own the shit out of him. And he doesn't get by her. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to call on gatekeepers every day for the rest of my life. So I went home, I was talking to my wife, and my long-term goal had always been to invest in real estate and eventually work my way out of corporate America and just into the investing side. And she's like, well, why don't you go sell real estate? It's like, I don't know, man. That's kind of not what you do when you have a corporate background. That's like what you do if you can't find a job, right? Because most of the realtors I meet, right, are the guys who are making like 20 grand a year, and then they go and they fail. They want to make 100 and then they don't. So I was like, yeah, I'll check it out. I stumbled across your podcast one night, and it was probably like 7 or 8 p.m. and like 3 in the morning, I'm still up watching these things. I'm in this rabbit hole, right? I'm just watching. I'm like, holy shit, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. So I kind of decided that was what I was going to do. Started interviewing some different firms, and kind of set up an exit strategy for my company. This was all last year. I ended up coming on full bore or full time in real estate in June, but I was licensed in late March, early April, and went full steam. I just basically did what you and a couple other guys online told me to do. Put in my 12 or 15 hours a day and tripled my income.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. What was that? Was there like just out of curiosity, man? I mean, with the podcast, was it like like one podcast that like really hit you? Where you're like, dude, I just gotta like, what was that defining moment?
No, it was like the first one I saw when I was like, this dude's got a company called the Get Shit Done Company. I'm in, right? No, here's my problem. I didn't want to just go sling a product for the rest of my life, right? I was like, I need to build a business that I can grind for 5 or 6 years. I can build an exit strategy, or at least build a strategy where I can then go and invest in real estate and live wherever I want, and travel if I want to. So it wasn't any dude, I've seen every one of your podcasts. I'm not going to lie. And I've watched a ton of them over and over again. I think the thing that really did it for me was after finding your podcast, and I'm not here to try to like pitch your stuff by any means, man, but I stumbled onto your mega open house video, and I was like, shit, I can do that. Yeah. And literally that's what I started doing, man. I got my license. The next day I picked up the phone. I started cold calling. I was brutal at it, dude. I was and I like cold calling. I'm one of those few guys that like, I get a kick out of it. I think it's a lot of fun. But like, instead of practicing with like a co-agent or like an agent in my office, I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to call people. I'll screw up all day long on the phone, but I got a better chance of setting an appointment screwing up than I do with another new agent. So, and it worked, man. I mean, like within a couple of weeks, I was listing houses.
Yeah.
And it was simply off of you. I mean, literally, dude, I robbed your script. This was before your boot camp. So I totally robbed your script, and I would just call them up and say, hey, man, I'm not calling to list your house. Got this mega open house strategy. And dude, my first mega open house, I'd get like 2 and 3 people in. The only thing that was mega about them is I was calling them mega opens, but it worked. And I just kept banging it out and having fun.
Yep. So, I love it, dude. So. No, that's awesome, man. All right, so you go out there, you get your license. You go full time in June. So as we're doing this podcast, I don't know when it'll be released. It might be February before it's released, but I mean we're the very beginning of January 2017. So in really your first 6 months of really hitting the ground running, being full time, you do 17 deals and like 6 million in production. You know, right? Your average realtor does like 4 deals a year, and I mean there's a lot of people struggling, especially in that first year. So you kind of talked a little bit about grinding out there in those open houses, but go a little bit deeper in like, okay, day one, like what are you doing, dude? Where 90% of agents fail in the first 3 years, right? Like what did you do to not become a statistic where you're dropping out? I mean, because again, man, I mean, I would argue to say to almost any new agent would love to be in the position that you're in, dude. I mean, it's almost unheard of, right? And that's why I was really excited to have you on. I mean, you're doing big things, and but it's that kind of production right out of the gate, man, is very rare to see.
Yeah. So I cold called right off the bat. Now, I had run in my former life call centers and done tons of cold calling. I was in new business development. So like my whole world has been cold calling since basically I got out of college. And so I was just like, dude, I picked up the phone. And I got a mentor of mine that I met about 12 or 15 years ago. He really kind of steered me into the path that I've gone throughout my career. And he was always like, dude, when you run out of things to do, pick up the phone. Yeah. Nobody gets paid until sales are made. Pick up the phone. And that's what I did. I literally picked up the phone and I called every single for sale by owner. And I had no strategy for it. Dude, I was on Zillow. I've made more money off of Zillow not giving them a nickel. I mean, and I don't buy any leads from them, right? I just call every single one of them. I did door knocking. I don't love door knocking. I do it. I don't love it because I get bored in between each thing. But dude, I knocked on a door across the street from a house I had listed. I sold the guy a $750,000 house. Yeah. So you just do what you're supposed to do. And then one of my other mentors always told me the reason he was more successful than anybody in sales is he just figured out what the top sales guy did effort-wise, and he added 50% on. Yeah. So if the top sales guy's making 50 calls a day, he's making 75. And so I just kept it up. And I think I didn't realize how, uncommon it is to do. I mean, you did like what, 40, 50 deals your first year. You were like the first guy that I was listening to. The guy that owns my brokerage did like 45, 50 deals his first year. And I was like, well, shit, I guess I'm going to try to do 50. And I didn't really realize how rare that was. Now, I will throw a caveat in there. I've spent the last decade in hardcore development of sales and leadership skills. And so, like, I'm really freaking good on the phone. And, it's not like I stumbled out of a $20,000 a year job into a $100,000 a year job. I was making, 100, 120 grand a year. And so I had that skill set built up. It was just simply about changing my product.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I just went after it. And man, I got hung up on a lot. And the first listing appointment I had, dude, was so bad. I got the listing eventually, like 3 months later. But I didn't know what I was doing. I botched every aspect of it. But I was sitting in front of the guy and I was learning how to do it, which in my opinion is better than practicing with somebody in the office any day of the week.
Yeah.
And what's really funny about that is he interviewed like 2 or 3 people. And I asked him how come he chose me, and he's like, the other guy didn't show up.
Jesus. Yeah.
And so I was like, dude, I've been at this for like 2 weeks. I showed up, right?
Yeah.
So that's half of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's really it. I use the scripting that you talk about as far as the mega open houses. I never once tried to convert anybody on the phone from a for sale by owner to a listing, because everybody's doing that. And I just thought, you know what? I'm going to show you that I'm willing to work for you before you pay me. And at some point, you're going to want to pay me. And if you don't, that's cool, because I'm going to find 8 or 10 people door knocking and doing the open houses and getting my signs out there and just having fun.
Yeah. So, and that was my next question. So when you're talking about, okay, I had a lot of phone experience. I'm good on the phone. I'm calling these people. My next question was going to be, what are you saying, right? So, okay, so you're calling, and I think anybody that's probably watching this or listening to this knows my for sale by owner to the mega open house strategy. Are you doing anything else, or were you doing anything else outside of just setting up your open houses?
Setting up my open houses, man. I am literally word for word. I mean, I changed a couple of things up, but I'm literally, hey, I'm not calling you to list your property. I'm sure you're getting just bombarded from real estate agents begging you for your listing. Dude, it is your script. Yeah. Exactly. Because I'm like, dude, you sold, 700 homes last year? Why would I possibly try to create a script? I'm just going to do what you did. If I get 10% of what you do in production, dude, I'm living wherever I want.
Right.
So that's basically what I did. It's really not very, I hate to be like, I wish I had like some huge trick, like, oh, I hacked this, or I figured this out. I just watched your podcast. I saw Pat Hyben on your podcast, checked out his podcast. And I literally spend probably an hour or 2 a day with people who are making millions of dollars a year in real estate. And I just try to emulate what they do. And then, I set myself up coming in where I had some cash in the bank, not tons, but enough where I didn't have that sort of commission breath, right? Where I didn't need to close a deal my first month to be able to eat. And so I was just like, I had a little bit of cushion there. My wife doesn't work outside the home though. So there was like that fire in the back being like, dude, I got a nice house and nice cars. And like, I left a 6-figure job. If I don't make this work, there's no going back to my old industry. I got to make it work. And so that's the deal at 5 a.m. when you're up trying to figure out what you're going to do that day. But again, I don't think it's that complicated. It's not easy, but it's pretty simple. You just make tons and tons of phone calls, see tons of people, keep asking people to do business with you and offering value. And that's it, man. It's my podcast. This interview is going to be like redundant of everyone you've ever done, right? Because I'm just like, here's what we do. You watch shit like this and then get involved in some, get a mentor, figure out, what you don't know. And then between, 8 p.m., like you always say, and 10 p.m., dude, I'm grinding out trying to learn this stuff. During the hours of the day, I'm practicing. During the hours in the night, I'm learning.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, it's one of those things when you talk about how simple this is. It's like when people will want to come out and shadow me or see my office. It's almost like they're almost like disappointed. Like they expect it to be like some like magical thing, and it's like, no, dude, we do open houses, we do Facebook, and that's about it. Dude, like we do 3 things. We just do them every single day and execute at a high level, and
yeah.
There's no magic pill, man. It's just it's very simplistic. So, okay, So you had this big success in your first 6 months,
Yeah.
and we'll talk here in a moment too. I mean, so big to the point where you got an assistant now. You're already starting your team in your first 6 months. I mean, you're really tearing it up out there. What were some of the? Because you just said that it's not easy either. So what were some of the obstacles that you had? Or that you've faced so far in your career that maybe you weren't expecting? What was some of that adversity that you've had to overcome thus far?
That's a good question. I was expecting it coming in because, like I said, before I got licensed, and I should back up this time. Before I got licensed, I spent 3 or 4 months, preparing to do this. So I had watched literally hundreds of hours worth of podcasts, watching people interviews. I've been in sales my whole life, so I was expecting most of it. Things that I didn't expect were the amount of paperwork and the amount of like back end shit. And here's one of the areas that I'm not good at. And I went back through when I was planning for 2017. I went back through all of my people that I contacted, my open houses, and I found 8 houses that have closed that I didn't do business with that I could have done business with if I followed up better. So that's the number one thing is my follow up sucks. And that's one of my big things for 2017. That's the biggest thing is following up quickly. I was doing so much prospecting that I was sort of making up for not following up well. But that was the thing that hit me the most is there was an extra probably 50 or 70 grand in commission that I literally had in my hands and I didn't follow up. And people were like, "Oh no, John, no, we ended up buying a house, but thanks for helping us. You really steered us in the right direction." Yeah. Like shit, and it had I made a phone or, I bought a house last week. Like, damn, man, I was working with you a month ago, just real briefly. So that's the biggest thing is the learning of the follow-up. The other thing I would say is the consistency. I mean, I'd love to say that I'm consistent with my calling every day and I'm consistent and I'm doing everything like that. I'm pretty consistent, but I could double my production if I could square away my consistency and that. And that's why I hired an assistant right off the bat. I mean, on month 2 of full time, I had an assistant on board. And then I ended up parting ways with her and getting a different one. But I don't know if there were any. I don't know. I'm probably not answering your question really well. I don't know if there were any surprises, but I guess the follow up and how much you leave on the table if you don't master that aspect of the game. Yep. That's probably the biggest thing that shocked me. Like, damn, there was literally 70 grand or something like that in commissions that closed that I didn't do business with that I could have.
Yep, love it, man. So, so you hire your first assistant. Like, how did you know 2 months in to hire your first assistant? Like, at what point was that like, holy crap, I know that this is right? And
dude, I hate doing paperwork.
Yeah,
I learned a long time ago. I've had assistants for like the last 4 or 5 years when I was in the corporate space, and I just learned a long time ago. It was John Maxwell or somebody said, dude, if you focus on your weaknesses instead of your strengths, you're going to get average, and nobody pays for average. So I don't do anything I suck at because I'm really, really bad at most things. I'm really good at like 3 things. I'd like to say like 4 or 5 things, but I'm probably really good at like 3 things. I'm good on the phone, I'm good with people, and I'm good with, prospecting, in whatever scenario that is. But I'm terrible at paperwork. I'm terrible at follow-up. So I was like, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to hire somebody on for, 30 grand a year or whatever it is to handle all of my paperwork. The first time I saw a contract was writing one, and it was brutal. I botched the whole thing. And so that was it, man. The other thing I did was when I came on board with KW. I interviewed a number of different firms, and I sat down with the owner of the offices here, and I said, I tell you what, man, I'll come on board with your company, but you got to guarantee, or you got to promise me that you'll mentor me, and we'll meet every other week for coffee. I'll buy, unless I'm not selling anything, then you buy. But I was like, I'll buy. I'll take you out every other week, and you just help steer me away from some of the pitfalls. And right off the bat, I mean, I was doing 4 or 5 deals a month on month 2 or 3, and he's like, you got to get an assistant. And so that's what I did.
Yep. Awesome, man. So, okay, so that assistant, though, didn't work out.
Yeah.
Right? And then you had to rehire. So what did you learn through that process? Like, what were some of the things that you did wrong, why that assistant didn't work out, and then what did you learn to get it right the second time?
Well, I'm hoping I got it right. No, I got it right. Actually, I hired an assistant the second time from a property management company in my office. So she wanted to get into the sales side of things, and I know the guy that she worked for real well, and I've known her now for about 6 months. The person the first time around I hired, and she's good. She's got a lot of skill set. She was a former IT person, and she was making like 70, 80 grand a year. And she wanted to get out of the corporate space as well. And she had a couple of issues that went on there or whatever. But the thing that I realized was I overhired the first time. And I was not going to be able to get her what she needed, I think, on the front end. She could grow into a position, but it would have taken me too long to get her back to. So like the income was too big of a drop for her. She thought it was going to be okay, and it wasn't. So I don't know that And then there was a fit thing, right? So when I hire, and I've hired for a long time, I try to do a 60-day, 60 to 90-day temporary, setup with them, right? Where I say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to see if this works for both of us. Because I used to think I suck at hiring, because I've hired all the time, and like maybe 1 out of 4 salespeople in the world stick, and then I realized that everybody else just sucks at working. I don't suck at hiring. And so I tried to find this time around like a known commodity, right? Like I know this gal that I hired. I know that she's done good work for the person. I know what her goals are down, and I know that I'm paying her more than she was making before. So like I kind of weeded out all those pitfalls that I ran into the first time. What I will tell you is my mentor here, in the owner of the office, he had me go through the Keller Williams hiring process with her, which is pretty intense. Yeah. I mean, like doing 3 levels deep of references, and but sometimes you still can't weed out somebody that doesn't fit. So I don't have a great answer for that. I guess hire somebody, steal away somebody that works with somebody that because then that they're already good. Yeah. And when they're sad to see the person leave, you got somebody that's good.
Yeah. Yep, no, I love it, man. So, a question that I always get, whether it's from new agents or people that are starting out or whatever, is how do I go out there and choose an office? So, as you're out there interviewing, how did you know that, that I don't want to say Keller Williams or that branch, that mentor. And I always tell people it's not the name of the company, it's the local leadership, right?
Yep.
I mean, how did you know that organization was for you, and like what recommendations would you give people during that initial interview process?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, because you don't want to get it wrong the first time and waste a year. I looked at Keller Williams and a few other companies that had the same basic business model. What I was looking for was a platform to build my business on. So I wasn't coming in saying like, oh, I'm going to go sell houses. I was coming in saying, I'm going to go build a business that eventually I can sell. And so Keller Williams happens to have a platform that works pretty well with that. And then it was just a matter of, the splits and things like that wasn't that big of a deal to me, because everybody, at the end of the day, unless you're joining a team, which gives you a ton of benefits as well of leads, which I figured I didn't need leads. I figured I could go hunt my own. But not everybody can, so I don't want to discourage teams by any means. But I kind of figured I needed a platform and training, and then I needed somewhere that was just going to let me do my own thing. And for me, that was the most important thing. Like, I don't do bosses. I don't do meetings. Meetings are where salespeople go to avoid work, right? I don't go to, like, unless it's a meeting that, like, you're going to really get trained and learn stuff on. Like, I've watched your team meetings. They're a little different than, sitting here and talking about what everybody did in production last month and what's going on in charity in the area and all that stuff. But I think somebody just needs to have a good definition of what they want to create before they go and look for a company. Because there's a lot of different models that work incredibly well. I interviewed a team in the area here, a guy that you've had on your podcast, and it didn't seem like it was going to fit for me. So I was really looking for somewhere that I could build ground up, go to training if I wanted to, not be required to do anything at any time by anybody else. That was a huge thing for me, and so that's what I would say. I don't know if that's a wordy, not great answer, but I guess be prepared ahead of time for what you want to do, and then go find an office that allows you to do that. Because I hear, like, in the mastery group and things, like people talking about a different KW or a different Remax or whatever, where their broker won't let them do this. Yeah. And I was looking for a place where, hey, my broker works for me to help keep me from losing my license. That's it. I don't want to have to be places I don't want to be. So that was what I looked for. So I guess define what you want and then go find a firm. Remember that you're interviewing them; they're not interviewing you because they'll take anybody.
Yep.
If you can fog a mirror, dude, you can join a team.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, no, I love it. I couldn't agree more. I'm sure I piss off some brokers when I say this, but it's like a broker exists to make you profitable, to make you successful. Period. That's it. Right? And good brokers, they'll agree with that. They're like, yeah, I exist to make you successful, right? And keep you out of trouble, like you said, and not get in the way. And unfortunately, too many just get in the way. So now we're entering 2017, dude. So you had a great first half of the year. I don't want to say it, so you haven't even been doing this for a full year yet.
Yeah.
You've already got $1 million plus on the board going in the first of the year, which usually the first quarter kind of sucks because we're recovering from the holidays. So you're already posting some big numbers. Like, what are you now doing? Now, what you've learned in the first 6 months after reflecting on all this, what's kind of your strategy going forward in 2017?
Yeah, well, I have some big goals in 2017. So a lot of it revolves around systems and processes.
My two favorite words.
Yeah, right. Like every great salesperson knows that there are 3 things that make you great: systems and processes, systems and processes, and systems and processes. That's it, right? So that's what I'm focusing on right now in January when my business is a little bit slower, and then. Getting my drip campaigns in. Like, I don't have any of that stuff set up. I've just been out trying to bang it out. So, like I said, I'm still losing business. I know I'm losing business because I'm not following up as well. So that's really my biggest things for 2017 is get my systems dialed in and get my follow-up in place. I'm also starting to move more into. I dabbled a little bit in some expired calling because I like it, man. I like. Banging out 250 calls on my Mojo dialer. And I got no stake in them, but, I think it's a great dialer, and I enjoy it. I mean, if I don't cold call for 3 or 4 days, I get kind of antsy. So I'm going to be focused more on that. But my goal is to do 80 open houses. I figure, that'll get me – my goal is to do 17 million in sales. And there's really no – clever way that I came up with 7. I was like 17 and 17. That sounds like something people can get behind. So that was that's how I set my goal. But that's it, man. That's it. Is the my follow up and my systems. That's all I'm focusing on differently. And then keeping doing the open houses. They're fun. They're easy as hell to do, and people show up for them. So
yeah, it's so weird. Like a lot of real estate agents get this mental mindset of they're too good for open houses. They're beyond open houses. And,
love that.
One of my friends, Bob Lucido, who's the number one Keller Williams agent in the world. I mean, the dude does like $450 million a year in production. He personally, to this day, still does 50 open houses a year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Dude, they just crush it. They just work, man. I think it's just an excuse to not go out there and work hard, right?
Even open houses where I get like 3 people through, dude, if I knock 25 doors, 50 doors ahead of that, I'm going to pick up something else there too. So, I have open houses that crush it. Not to the level that I haven't figured out how to get 40, 50 people through yet, but I got to be honest with you. It's because I'm not doing every aspect of the recipe exactly right. So I'm working on that. But even I did an open house a couple of weeks ago. I got 2 groups through because I did it last minute, and I got them both under contract right now.
Yeah.
$700,000 in business.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, now it doesn't happen every time, but if you do 2 open houses a weekend, maybe let's say do 6 a month, dude, you're gonna make money.
Yeah.
It's just math at that point.
Yeah, I had a dude, and maybe he's watching this right now. I don't know his name. I can't remember his name, but he reached out to me. He's like, I'm really struggling. I need some advice. I've been doing this for 2 years. I haven't sold a house. And I'm like, I'm going to give you some tough love right now, dude.
Right?
I'm like, give us a home in 2 years because you're lazy as shit. Like, if you just got up and did an open house every single day for 2 years straight, that's 700 open houses, you're going to do business. Right? Like, to me, there's no excuse to not do business for a couple months in a row. It's just like, dude, you're just choosing to not get out there and grind. So, one thing that you said that I loved, and you're really the first person that I've heard state it in this way, is you didn't jump into this business to sell houses. You jumped in this business to build a business to sell. What are your, obviously you can tell from this podcast, you've done a lot of due diligence, a lot of research. You even did a lot of research before you jumped in the game. What's your plan to build something to sell? Like, what does that look like?
So I'm working on that. I'm working on a 5-year plan to work myself out of production. And then it's going to be really whether it's more profitable to sell the business or whether it's more profitable to just have somebody run it. So what I don't want to do is chase FSBOs at 70 years old, right? I don't want to be that guy. I like selling. I like selling a lot, but I like being able to do whatever I want even more. And so I haven't gotten a plan in place to actually build it in a way to sell it. I think I'm going to run into a couple of you changed the name of your company. I've been thinking a lot more about that. Did I do it wrong on the front end, putting, see my nice little logo back here? And dude, I don't like spending money either. That thing cost me like $80. Yeah. Having it put up and everything, dude, like $80 total. I think I got it on Fiverr and then had some random dude in the area do it. But I think having a sellable product at the end of the day is, I just don't understand why anybody would want to go in and have a job forever. Yeah. I just don't like being employed. And right now, and people think I'm self-employed, I'm self-employed, but I don't have a company yet. I have a startup because if I stop working tomorrow, we go hungry. Yep. And I don't ever want that to be the case. So my three big things that I'm going after in life is I want freedom of time. In other words, I want to be able to choose when I work. I want freedom of location. If I want to work from Fiji, I'm working from Fiji. That's my goal in life. And then I want financial freedom in that I don't ever have to look at the right side of the menu when I go out to eat, right? I don't care. And so to do that, all three of those long term, you have to build something that becomes an asset. And most real estate, even teams, don't become an asset because they stay in production forever. Yeah. And so that was my goal originally. I mean, I guess originally before I saw this, I was like, I'm just going to sell a bunch of houses and then go invest in real estate. Yeah. But then I learned, through your stuff and other people's that, holy cow, I can build a business that somebody else runs. So whether I sell it or whether I stay in an ownership position and somebody else runs it, that's what it's all about now. So that's where the systems and processes come into place too. Because if it's not repeatable, then it's not sellable and it's not scalable. Yeah. So you got to kind of. I read somewhere that you should, and it might have been one of your things, but you should build every process like you're going to open 1,000 offices. Yeah. And that's what I really have to do for this year, because right now, man, I'm still doing a lot of stuff, seat of the pants. So I'm like, oh shit, I got to do this or I got to do that, and I'm putting stuff in place to get away from that. But it's not quick and it's not easy. That's the hard stuff in this business. Selling houses, dude, that just takes effort. But like building the business, that takes a lot of strategy. It takes a lot of focus.
Yeah, and I think that's true for every business, right? Okay, if I want to go open a restaurant, cooking great food is the easy part. It's running the back ends, and that's why so many entrepreneurs fail, because they don't understand the intricacies that go into all the back end stuff. And no, but you're doing it right, man. I mean, I will say, and I know that with you and the alumni, I'm very open about this, but I still haven't replaced the same amount of income that I made when I was in production since I've stepped out 4 years ago. However, like right now I got like 80 deals in escrow, right? And I'm not getting a big chunk of all of those, but I'm getting small chunks. But I can't tell you one address. And I mean, it's nice to get to a point where, it's just mailbox money. It's just that passive income that's coming in, and that's the way to build a business where you can, like you said, you can be anywhere. It's not reliant on you. So I love that, dude. So.
And I think you got to step out, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think you got to step out, or you got to set it up with phases, right? You can't just one day say, okay, I got some buyer's agents and things are going well, I'm going to get a listing agent to step out. Dude, your income's going to cut so dramatically. Yep. So my goal is to build it large enough that I have an income number in mind, right? I have it's my fuck you number, basically. It's my I don't have to do anything for anybody ever again number of dollars that I need a year. And so I've got to build my business big enough that when I step out of it, my income goes back down to that level, and that's the number. So you almost have to look at it like I pay myself, for instance, and the way that I set it up paying myself is I pay myself as a buyer's agent right now. So I pay 50% of everything I make commission-wise goes to me, 50% goes to my company, expenses come out of my company, net profit comes out of my company back to me. And the reason I do that is because then I always know on that left-hand side, net profit, dude, that's what I make if I didn't go to work today, if I had somebody else doing the sales. So as soon as that number gets big enough that it hits my FU number, then I can step out. Yeah. And so if you just set yourself up from the beginning like that, because the reality is, dude, if I'm making 25 grand this month, I'm not really, my business isn't making 25 grand. I'm paying myself as a sales guy too, because I'm wearing all the hats. And so that's kind of the way that I set it up. And again, I didn't come up with that on my own. I don't want anybody to think like, I got all these great ideas, dude. I stole that from another guy. You know.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like, and you hit the nail on the head with all of that, man. Of because I think so many team leaders think that they're going to be able to replace themselves inside the production, right? And now you will replace yourself, but it might take 5 people to replace you, right? You've got to have it where your team's production is covering your business expenses and your personal salary. Have consistency there for a good 6 months or whatever. Then okay, maybe it's time for me to reevaluate this and step out and then focus on other things. So, what's cool about today, dude, and what I get really jealous about is when I started in 2005, YouTube didn't exist, right? Facebook didn't exist. There were no podcasts. Like I couldn't. Now I interviewed as many agents as I could before I jumped in, like you did. So I try to do my homework, but you can't do it to the level that you're able to do now. So what advice would you give for maybe somebody that's thinking about entrepreneurship, jumping into entrepreneurship, as far as doing your homework, doing that research like you did?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely crucial. And I mean, I get asked all the time, how did I do it this much in my first 6 months? And I kind of have to tell people it's a couple of things. First of all, I was a 6-figure employee. I was a 6-figure guy before I started. You're not going to go from being a $30,000 a year employee to a $200,000 a year employee instantly. Because the reason somebody's a $30,000 employee is the market deems their skill set $30,000 worth of value. So you got to make up that, whatever your goal is. If your goal is $100,000 your first year, you've got to figure out, okay, where do I go to add 70,000 more value to the marketplace than I'm currently doing? And I think people, the great thing about YouTube is, dude, there's just endless amounts of information on there, man. If I could do it over again, dude, I have, like I said, I went to undergraduate school. I went to graduate school. I spent like $100,000 on my education. Dude, I can get that for, $15 a month to $30 a month in internet fees now, right? So it's there. I would say don't jump into something thinking that you're going to go from 0 to $100,000 without doing your homework, because you don't have that value to the marketplace. The other thing is, I also looked at like the top agents in my area, the top newer agents, and I couldn't really find a whole lot. But I was looking for people like, okay, how much production, how much effort are you putting in to make $100,000? I'm new. I'm going to have to put 3 times that effort in because I don't have a base. I don't have a sphere. I only sold one house to one person that I've known so far. Every single deal, because I mean, I've only lived in this part of the country for like 2.5 years. And everybody I knew were my employees at my last company, and they're not buying houses at the price point I want to sell. Yeah. And so, I mean, you just got to put in the time studying it up front. And the thing that I would tell everybody is, don't go out and get a $1,000 a month coach right off the bat. The ROI is not there on it, in my opinion. I'm not saying don't do it down the road, but there's just so much good content out there. Learn it, find 1 or 2 things that works. Don't chase any shiny objects, and just go do those things until you get so freaking good at them that people are willing to pay you. And that's really what it comes down to. I mean, there's probably 3 or 4 months before I got my license. I even went down to family reunion before I got my license to check out that stuff. And then I was hooked, and I got back. I was like, shit, I should probably get a license because this is starting to get like I'm kind of getting involved. I should probably learn, And so, but the entire time I was studying for my license, that was for just the one day of passing the test. But man, I was studying 3 or 4 hours a day on how do I build a business. And I think people look at this and just think, like, you should be able to go into real estate and make $200,000. Like, what other business can you go in and make $200,000? Yeah. Like, I got my accountability partner from the mastery, the 90-day mastery, right? So our program's done, right? But we still keep in touch every week. Guy made like a $250,000 for the first time last year net to him, and we're talking about it. Well, I'm like, dude, that's like what? Plastic surgeons, a few docs out there are making that kind of coin, because he hustles like crazy. It's taken him a while to get there, but he's absolutely a rock star with it. You can't just show up and make that kind of money. So my advice to anybody is prep before you get your license, because you're going to feel like you're too busy once you get your license. If you even have the inkling of starting in real estate, dude, 8 p.m. on, you should be on YouTube. That's it. I mean, just steal everybody's shit. That's what I did over and over and over again.
Yeah, Picasso, man, good artist copy, great artist steal, And so it's like I'm helping assisting a friend of mine that's trying to open up a small little personal training boutique studio, and I mean, to even get a landlord to take him seriously, he's got to submit a hardcore business plan.
Yeah.
If you look at a lot of the other industries, man, that's kind of part of it. And then you jump into real estate, and there's no requirement for that.
Yeah.
And we seem to do so much half-assed backwards. Because like you said, man, I mean, most people have this thought process of, I'm going to get my license, and the business is going to come to me. All my friends and family members will refer me, and it just doesn't work out that way.
No,
dude.
not at all. Not at all. And it shouldn't work out that way. I mean, like, you shouldn't get into a business with no effort and make cash.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not the way that capitalism works. Capitalism is fantastic, but it's also, unforgiving, man. If you don't do your homework on the front end, you're not going to make it. But the beauty of it is, if you do your homework and you get involved with some, I talk to everybody about your coaching program, dude. I have no stake in your coaching program. You know that. I know that. But for $1,000, dude, I've made $100,000 extra off of that program. Now, am I doing every single thing you teach, dude? I'm probably like implementing 10, 15%. The beauty of a program like yours or whomever else is out there, if you can figure out a way to cost it out, when you're looking at $300, $330 a month for 3 months, that's less than a car payment for most people. And most people just aren't willing to put that in. It blows my mind.
Yep.
Like, I mean, it's shocking to me that people think they can just jump in and do it. You put the effort in. You got to put the you gotta kind of walk before you run thing, dude. You got to study before you can really do this well.
Yeah, my mentor, my personal coach right now, Darren Hardy, in his research, and he goes pretty deep in his research.
Yeah, he's a rock star. Love that guy.
He shows that only 5% of entrepreneurs out there will ever invest in any type of a coaching platform, any type of a course. So 95% won't. And what I tell people about entrepreneurship, man, is if you're committed, dude, it's like fishing with dynamite, because 95% of the people out there are just not committed. They're just hoping and praying things are going to fall in their lap, man. It's, you have very little competition once you fully commit.
Yeah, and fully committing is like, if you had to ask me if I'm fully committed right now, like, I'd like to say that I am, but like, I know that there are days that I half-ass stuff and I could do way better. Like, I mean, I could triple my production if I would just do the things that I don't like doing. So that's the big thing for 2017 is I'm trying to get the shit out of the way in the morning that I don't like doing, so I can do what I like doing in the afternoon. Eat the frog first. Yeah. Eat the frog first, right. But it's also, you mentioned Darren Hardy. His book, The Compound Effect, right, dude.
Brilliant.
You don't get in shape or out of shape. Trust me, I'm a little out of shape for where I'd like to be. You don't get in shape or out of shape by eating a burger one day, dude. It's the little tiny things that you do consistently every day. And so you gotta do the small, consistent things every single day. And I look back at November. I didn't do my job in November, and I didn't sell any houses in December. I did my job in December, and I sold. Wait, maybe I've got that the wrong month. But either way, I didn't commit as much as I should have 1 month because I was raking in cash. I got all sorts of stuff going on. I parted ways with my assistant, and I'm focused on my closings. And next thing you know, I'm like, God, I only got 3 listings. I had 15 listings earlier this year. Yeah. So it's all about consistency. I don't know if that's way off on a tangent, but it's all about consistency and just doing the little things over and over and over again. It's not sexy, but it's what makes money. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Consistency is the only magic pill that exists. Everybody's chase that magic pill because they're unwilling to be consistent. It's like, just get consistent, dude. Well, and like you said, it's the same thing for everything, whether it's your business success, getting in shape, your marriage. So I mean, dude, you're having to grind a lot of hours, right? I mean, this business is really eyes open to eyes closed. It may be an adjustment. I find it can be harder on our spouses than it is us.
Yeah.
Like, I can grind 20 hours a day. I can pull all-nighters and just keep. It doesn't matter to me. It's very difficult on my wife. How has that adjustment been, and what have you kind of done there to get buy-in to get her to support you?
Well, so I'm fortunate in a couple of ways, dude. I married way up. So, I have a great spouse who totally gets what I do. But she's in this really competitive, grind-out nursing program right now. She's got a couple undergraduate degrees. She was like the good student, right? She got a couple degrees, stayed home with the kids for 10 years, didn't want to go back to the lab, and went back to this, super competitive program. So she's grinding out 12, 15 hours a day herself, studying, which blows my mind. I can't imagine doing it. So we've got the week split up. And I'll answer your question a little bit better in a second, but we've got the week split up. like I know on Monday and Wednesday, or every day of the week, I get the kids on the bus. So I'm not talking to anybody prior to 8:15 in the morning. So if I want to do work, I got to get up at 5 because I got to be able to get my kids up at 7 because they also need to have their dad there. And so then on Monday and Wednesday evenings, dude, I don't do any appointments. I get my kids off the bus. My wife's out. She's hanging out at Starbucks until they close studying. And then, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, I have open evenings. So we worked it out together. It was tough. But in the summer, she told us she didn't have a class. She gets it. I'm like, dude, May hits, dude, I'll see you in August.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's the way it is, too. I'm like, dude, they went camping a few times last year, dude. I pulled our motorhome out to the campsite, parked it, drove back into town, and worked. Yeah. And then I would sometimes catch out like late at night for a few beers around the campfire, turn around, drive back in so I could hit an open house the next morning. So your spouse has to be on board with it. But it's kind of one of these things where you go, okay, like we're going to sacrifice some of our time together right now. So in 5 years or 2 years or whatever it is, we don't ever have to sacrifice anything again. And so, but it's like anything, dude. Like I've been in great shape. I'm not in great shape right now. So that's one of my big things for 2017, dude. I'm doing a ketogenic diet right now, dude. I would love to go out and grab a burger with a bun and stuff. I'm not doing it because you know what? I don't want to be fat in 3 months. When we get off the phone, I'm hitting the gym. I don't want to go to the gym today because this is my first couple of weeks back to the gym, and it's brutal. Yeah. But you just gotta commit to that, and then your spouse has to be committed too. People talk about balance, and I hear you talking about it all the time. People don't get balance. Balance doesn't mean 50-50. Like we ride motorcycle. Dude, if I go into a curve on a motorcycle and I don't shift my weight, I'm crashing. I got to keep my weight moving from side to side depending on how the road goes to keep my balance. Business is the same way. There are times, man, when I got to lean in and put all of my weight towards the business, and I'll see you in a month. But, I just took last week off, went up to New York. I didn't do a single thing for work last week because I worked my ass off the week before. And so that's what I would say is everybody just needs to get their spouse on board. If you're going to be a high producer, that's a family decision. My kids know it. And I've done it bad in the past, man. I used to travel a lot for work. I'd be gone 4 or 5 days at a time. Minimum of 3 days a week I'd be gone. And I missed a lot of stuff. But we let our kids know right off the bat, hey, look, it's because your mom stays home that one of us is always there. See, you got to kind of divide that up and just do it the best you can, and then keep adjusting. There's days where I'm like, God, my wife and I haven't had a date in like 2.5 months. Like, shit, we should probably like schedule that in. Yeah. So it's all about planning with you. I don't want to say like I'm great at it because I'm not. I do my absolute best on it. I have some things that I don't flex on at all though. Like every morning, I don't care how early somebody wants to meet. Dude, I'm the dad that gets my kids on the bus every day. And that's what we do. Every single day I get them on the bus, I get them up for school. Every weekend I get them up and then my wife is studying in the morning and then I go do open houses on Saturday and Sunday. So from like 11 a.m. till 6 p.m., my kids don't see me on Saturday or Sunday ever right now. But they see me before that and after that. So you just got to kind of, I don't know, you got to, if I was like an ER doc, I would be working crazy shifts too, right? So just got to, like, are you going to commit to being number one or are you going to just like, not? I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, no,
Does that answer the question at all?
I dig it, man. It's like you said, it's the communication, man. And I believe you have lots of small conversations, so you don't have to have big conversations. Get clarity. I think a lot of people get themselves in trouble relationship-wise. They don't get that buy-in because they don't really share their visions and their personal vision and their personal vision for the family and long-term vision. Like, hey, here's the type of man that I must become for our family. I need your support with this, and I know, like in the beginning, my wife, not that she didn't support me, but, her thought process was always, oh, Josh just doesn't want to spend time with me or the kids because I wasn't sharing, those deep visions that I had, with the family. And as soon as I got crystal clear on that and communicated that, dude, the game changed.
Yep. And it's like that with my kids too. Like they know what dad does. They know dad's trying to build a business that they can come and work for. But there's times on the weekends where I got to come in and just do whatever. I bring my kids into the office. Yeah. It's perfectly cool. There are times where I don't see them for like 3 or 4 days. Like one of the weeks that before the holidays, like I didn't see my kids for like 4 days because I was out of my house by 5 a.m. and I wasn't getting back till 10 p.m. But then I spent the entire next week, every single waking minute with them. And, but they know what I do. They know that I'm trying to build something that's bigger than me. And they also know that when you work for somebody else, that person is your master. And they know that dad is trying to set up a world where we don't have to worry about that in our family if we don't want to. And my kids are 6, 8, and 10. And so they kind of, like my 6-year-old, she doesn't really get it, right? My 10-year-old, dude, she's starting to get it. I got her reading Og Mandino's Greatest Salesman in the World right now.
Yeah.
And she's loving it. She's getting, oh yeah, dad sells homes. Lily's going to sell homes with dad later in life. My wife's like, no, Lily's going to go to college and then make a decision, right? But you just got to keep everybody integrated. You can't try to balance it. You can't. I mean, there's days when I'm out on a date or something with my wife. I get a call from a guy that I'm selling a $700,000 house to. I'm picking up the phone.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I'm picking up the phone, because if I don't, then we're not going out to dinner next week.
Yeah.
But you gotta try to balance it the best you can. And again, by balance, I mean you got to shift your weight to keep you upright.
Yep, love
That's
it, dude.
What we do.
Yep, 100%, man. So, those that are watching this podcast, man, just like you started watching the podcast, right? I mean, they're here to gain the knowledge and the information because they want to go out there and create the life that they know they want and deserve. And as we're wrapping up here, man, do you have any last words of advice or inspiration that you'd like to leave our listeners with so they can go out there and again, create that life that they know they truly want and deserve?
Yeah, I've thought about this question a ton, right? Because I've watched so many of your podcasts and I know that Joey's asked it. I would say a couple of things. One is if you want that life, it doesn't come for free. It's not easy, and you got to be willing to do what it takes. And if you're not willing to do what it takes, that's okay too. You don't have to. I mean, you don't have to do that. You can go grind it out, and then when you're 80, you can be disappointed. But if you want the life where you get to do whatever you want, whenever you want, you got to do all the shit you don't want to do for a while. And then so figure out a way to like it, right? You don't have to like it. Like, I'm not a huge fan of door knocking. I door knock less now than I did when I started, but I'm a huge fan, like I said, of cold calling. So I'll sit and cold call for 2 or 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours on a day, and I just enjoy it. So find what works for you and do that. I'm not a big marketing guy. I don't believe in marketing. I believe in marketing, but I don't believe in it the way, like, you're not ever going to see, I don't even have my face on anything, because this face, dude, it doesn't sell houses, right? It's not, like, I wish it did, dude, but it doesn't. So you're not going to see me put any effort into, billboards and all that kind of shit, because it doesn't work for me. So find out what works for you and then stick with it and just do it and do it and do it and do it. And the second thing that I would say is you got to get mentors, dude. You have to get mentors, and you have to if you're going to level up, you can't do that surrounding yourself with people who are down a level. My mentor, my first mentor, he's been mentoring me for 12, 13, 14 years now. And he always said, dude, ducks and eagles do not hang out together. They just simply don't. Ducks are flying up high, man, looking for shit to hunt. Or excuse me, eagles are flying up high looking for shit to hunt. Ducks are eating shit in a pond and getting shot. Yeah. So you can't surround yourself with people who aren't going to be soaring up to that next level if you want to get it. And the third thing that I would say is to check out your stuff online. I'm like I said again, I'm not here to pitch your stuff, but it's good stuff and it's cheap, And if you can't afford to get inside of a coaching program, then get on YouTube. Do it until you can, but then invest some money in yourself. Maybe don't drive such a fancy car. Maybe don't spend every single commission and put it back into your business, because this, any other business in the world, you have to invest your retained earnings back into it. Yeah. So that's what I would do. And then pick up the phone, dude. Pick up the phone and pick up the phone and pick up the phone. That's it. It's simple.
I love it, man. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I don't think there's any better ROI than what you're putting back in here. I personally spend 6 figures a year just on my personal development to keep leveling up. And so, I know I usually end the podcast with that question, but I got one follow-up question for you. So Just so people can understand with prospecting, right? So when you're talking about cold calling, because so many people get so discouraged because they're like, oh, man, I've been calling for 3 hours. I don't have an appointment. Well, that's just that's the game, right? I don't think they understand the true effort. But the cool thing is we're in a business where you don't have to Like you can do business with such a tiny amount of the population and make more money than you ever fathomed. So can you give us an idea of the overall numbers? Like, I mean, how many people, how many hours, how many total dials are you doing on the Mojo dial? How many hours to equate to even like one appointment?
So it depends on what I'm doing. If I'm doing the mega open house script for sale by owners, it's every other one.
Yes.
I mean, literally, if you pitch it right, you say, look, dude, I'm willing to work for you for free, and here's why, because I'm going to get this return for me out of the thing. It's a way that you and I can work together, and you don't have to be paying a real estate agent. Do your whole script exactly. I would say it's probably 60, 70% of them will let me come and see them. If I'm doing expireds, I haven't had a ton of luck with expireds. I guess I just listed an expired. But I mean, we're talking hundreds of dials. Yeah. So figure out something else to do where your Mojo or whatever system you use is just banging out. I use the triple line because I got no patience at all. And so like I can't, but when I started, man, I didn't have the money for it. So it was literally cell phone, I'm dialing. It's a ton of dials to get good leads off of it, I guess. Circle prospecting, I would say that every time I circle prospect, if I'm circle prospecting for 2 hours, however many dials that does, I don't really pay that much attention to how many dials Mojo does, but I'm getting 3 or 4 people that say, yeah, in the next 6 months I want to do something. And when I circle prospect, it's usually hey man, I just sold a house in your neighborhood and I got other buyers that were interested, but I don't have any inventory, that type of script. Usually you get 3 or 4 people that are wanting to be nurtured a little bit, right? They're not appointments right away. So that's kind of what I do to kind of build my clientele base of people that I'm going to contact in the future. But the vast majority of my appointments come from my open houses. My deals come from my open houses. So I like the cold calling. So I don't pay as much attention to my numbers as I should. And that's, like I said, systems and processes for 17. So next time we talk, I'll be able to give you a better answer for like the exact number. But it's a shitload. That's the exact number. It's a shitload of dials, and people worry that somebody's going to tell them to fuck off. And like it happens every now and then. But most people are just like, no, I'm actually not interested. But thanks a lot. Keep your information. Hey, who else do you know? I'm really looking for a house to find for a friend in the area or whatever it's going to be. So I don't have an exact number. It's a lot of calls. And if you don't like dialing, don't do it. Go do something that you like doing. Do open houses. If you hate dialing, I got a guy next door to me, sells a lot of houses, hates cold calling, and so he doesn't do it. Yeah. So that's what I'm telling people. Prospecting, though, you have to prospect every day if you're going to be consistently selling a house a week. You can't take a day off of prospecting because that's just gonna. It's not so much the volume of people you're talking to; it's the consistency of the practice involved. And so that's what I would say is, prospecting overall has to be the number one thing that you do. We're not in the business of showing houses. We're not in the business of listing houses. We're in the business of prospecting and finding buyers and sellers. That's it. Everything else, you hire that shit out.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. Love it, man. And those that are watching and listening, I know I end every podcast with this, you guys, but information without implementation is truly just the start of delusion. So Jon just dropped so many amazing pieces of info, knowledge on you guys. Take something that you learned today, take action on it so you can go out there and create the life you know you want and deserve. And Jon, man, this has been a massive honor, dude, having you on the show, dude. Taking time out of your busy day to be here, man, and sharing your story and your successes, man. It's been awesome having you on. I truly appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate being here, man. Keep doing what you're doing because it has made such a huge impact on my life, and I just know a lot of people from the Mastery program and the ongoing program and stuff. Dude, it's making a big splash, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, truly appreciate it, my friend. All right, you guys. Well, we will see you next time.